Most students carefully plan their tuition before coming to Canada, but tuition is just one part of the money story. And honestly, tuition is the easiest part. I know it's a little bit expensive, but it's a fixed figure. But living expenses is what catch most people off guard. When I came to Canada as an international student, I had help. But still, I had to penny pinch to take for my bus pass, and I took lunch to school instead of buying lunch because all of it just adds up. In this video, I'm going to go through the real cost of studying in Canada, highlighting the parts that students most often overlook or get wrong, and share some practical tips on how to plan for this expense and reduce financial stress. So now let's start with the biggest and most expensive part of studying in Canada that most students plan for, and that is tuition. Now, before I get into the actual cost of tuition in Canada and how it differs based on which province or area that you're studying in Canada, just a quick note that this video is sponsored by Passage, and they provide loans for international students that are both inside and outside of Canada. And what I love about them is that they align the studies and the programs that they support with real in-demand occupations in Canada, which therefore sets you up for success when you're leaving school and heading into the job market. They take the stress out of the financial burden studying in Canada, not just by providing tuition, but also the cost of living requirement, that $20,000 that the government requires you to show when you are applying for a visa. We're going to talk more about them soon, but first, let's get into the tuition. Now, tuition is the most obvious and easiest cost that students see. And I just say easy because, not because it's easy to come up with, but easy because it's posted on the website. This program costs this amount of money and it's a fixed price. You know what it's going to cost no matter how long you're going to be in Canada for. However, there are some additional fees that you need to take into consideration. There are ancillary fees or administrative fees. There's textbook fees and other small fees that may add up to about $2,000-3,000 in addition to your tuition. So you want to keep that in mind, take that into consideration, and know those costs ahead of time. Now, depending on where you are in Canada and the type of school you go to, the cost is going to vary. So a college is going to be cheaper than a university, relatively speaking, right? And the public college in Canada could cost anywhere between $14,000 to $20,000 per year of study. For international students, we know that we pay a lot more money. And if you go to a university, it's going to cost about $20,000 to about $40,000 per year of study. So you want to keep those things in mind and take that into consideration when thinking about what are you trying to achieve by studying in Canada, where do you need to go, and who is going to help you achieve your goal. Now, depending on where you are in Canada too, the cost may vary. So if you're in the Greater Toronto area or in BC, in Vancouver, in British Columbia, the costs are maybe a little bit higher. And if you are in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, maybe even Northern Ontario, the Atlantic region, the cost might be a little bit lower. Now, Passage offers loans to schools that are in other provinces as well. So there's Ontario, there is Alberta, there's Manitoba. And let's say maybe you don't need a loan. Maybe you just need admissions into the college. This is also something that you can do through the Passage portal. And we're going to look at that later on. But take that into consideration, depend on where you go in Canada, determine where it is that you can afford. And if you need additional help for that tuition and that cost of living requirement, you can definitely get that through Passage. Now, here's where things get interesting. Right? We have tuition figured out. We know what it's going to cost. We know when it's due, and we know who to pay it to. That's figured out. Then, as soon as you get here or touch down in at the airport, we're talking about rent. We're talking about groceries. We're talking about transportation. We're talking about utilities. There's so other daily essentials that will add up and you need to take into consideration. So let's go through them one by one. Now, your second biggest expense is going to be rent. And typically, landlords want some upfront rent. So not just the first month's rent, but 2 months' rent. And some even ask for 3. What's really allowed is 2 months' rent that are asking for upfront. So as soon as you land, or even as you book the place, they're wanting that rent to reserve the place for you. So this is something that is ongoing. And, the government says that you need to come to Canada with 20,600 Canadian dollars for your first year of living expenses, right? And is that even enough? Like, I know for sure that when the amount increased, it doubled and they're like, what? But 10,000 was honestly not even enough money. but now it's $20,000. And is that even enough?
And each year, the government may review the cost of living requirement and increase it. And as of September 2025, if you applied to attend school after this date, the cost of living requirement for one person is $22,895, which works out to about $1,907 per month for cost of living.
So when you think about rent can range anywhere between $800 to $2,500, depending on where you live. Now, it also is depending on the type of space that you rent. Is it a room in somebody's house? Do you have your own bathroom? Do you have a studio? Do you have a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom? All of those variables are going to change what it's actually going to cost per month to live in Canada. And that's half of your $1,700 budget that you're working with, if we're working with that $20,600 budget, right? So you definitely want to keep that in mind. Figure out where you're going to rent and have that money up front so that you're not stressed out in the first couple of months. And the thing is, if you're going to work, if you're going to say, okay, I'm going to get a job, you have to first get the job. And of course, that first paycheck isn't going to come the day you start. It might come 2 weeks out, depending on how frequently they pay. And so that your first check isn't there immediately when you need the money. And so this is where that planning has to come into place. And unlike tuition, this isn't a fixed price. Now, of course, if you're living in the Toronto area or Vancouver area, Vancouver is the most expensive city to live in Canada right now. And if you're living in the Toronto area, it's also pretty expensive to live in Toronto. So you have to think about what is it going to cost if living in Toronto versus living in Thunder Bay versus living in Halifax versus living in somewhere in Alberta. Think about what that rent is going to cost. And some landlords may include utilities in the rent, some may not. And so unlike tuition, that's a fixed cost, this could be a variable cost based on your utility usage, your water usage. All these variables start to add up. And so when you're thinking about this budget, you have to think about it within a range and not necessarily just one number. So this is why Passage not only provides loans for you as an international student for your tuition, because that's not the only thing that's needed, right? The government does require you to have that $20,600 if you are coming into Canada for the first time, trying to get a visa. So Passage also provides this cost of living requirement. And to help you to manage your finances and make sure that it lasts for the year, you get it out in monthly installments. So you get a monthly stipend from Passage that is part of your loan to help you with your ongoing monthly expenses for your first year here in Canada. For students who need to realign their studies because maybe you've just finished that 1-year program and they're thinking about a second program, Passage can also help students that are already inside of Canada to get a tuition loan. At this point, you don't necessarily need that cost of living requirement, but make sure that you're planning properly for these cost of living requirements. Now, the next biggest expense could be your groceries. Now, depending on how much you eat, how many of you are in the family, if you're a vegetarian or if you're a meat eater, you can probably budget for about $250 to $500 a month on groceries. Now, if it's you and God is very good company, but then you can eat smaller or you can be very conservative in terms of your eating. Please eat healthy because you need yourself to survive for the next leg of the journey. Make sure you're having nutritious meals and getting enough of what you need. Don't eat a bunch of junk food and compromise your health, but your grocery bill will add up, and that's also on a variable expense. Now, one thing you can do is to try and shop online. If you are able to go online, go into the app. No Frills has its app. It's a PC Optimum app or PC Express. Go in, kind of load up what you need to have for the month, okay? And when you're loading it up in your phone, you can see what it's going to come up to versus when you go shopping and you're walking and you're like, oh, that look nice. In your phone, add it up, tally it up, and say you're going to buy one of this, one of that, and you know that it's going to cost $150, and that's one way to stay inside your budget. Take that into consideration for your groceries and a variable expense. The next thing is your utilities. You're going to need a cell phone with probably data, right, on it, and that can vary from $60 to $100 depending on the phone provider and where in Canada you are. So already we're talking about let's say $400 for groceries, $100 for utilities. You're already at $500. Right? So we're eating into that budget. Then you're talking about transit. Now, some institutions have like a bus pass with it integrated into the tuition. Not all. So double check to see if your institution has like a bus pass or a bus ride share or something to help you to, have that cost be like a fixed cost, like you pay $250 and you're good for 3 months or something. Or some of the municipalities, the local municipalities, will have like a student pass that you just pay $90 and use the pass and you ride on the bus all month long without having to pay any extra money. So look into things like that to help you to conserve and to pay attention to your transit. The other thing with groceries and food, because of course you buy groceries, you cook, you eat, but when you go to school, you're thinking about lunch. You want to pack some lunch. You go to the grocery store already, you done spend $500 or whatever for the month. Make a sandwich, make some pasta, make something. Most schools will have a microwave in the cafeteria. Make lunch for you to be able to save on eating out, because that can rack up a bill. And when you think about these individual expenses on their own, they don't necessarily seem overwhelming. Like, okay, $90 for your bus pass, not so bad. But when you add everything up, it can feel quite large. And this is where a lot of the planning falls short, because even the timing for when you will get a job is not something that you have control over, or how many hours you will get on that job. Because even though you sign up for 20 hours or you can do 20 hours, is that as many hours as the workplace is going to give you? Are you going to only get 10 hours, 15 hours a week? Will that make ends meet? So all these variables come together and could, change the trajectory of your entire plan if you are not planning properly. And you always want to have a little kitty, an emergency stash for things that you don't plan for, you cannot foresee. Your laptop dies, you have to buy different winter boots because the one that you have, the sole of it drop out. Clothing is another expense. Especially with the change in seasons. Of course, if you come here in the summer, it's probably a little bit easier to adjust to. In the summertime, when things are people are not looking for winter clothes in the summertime, they're probably a little bit cheaper. So look out for sales, look out for Amazon Prime Days, deals and such to try and get your winter gear outside of the winter season. Or even if you get it in the middle of it or close to the end of it, those are also cheaper because they know that people are now buying summer clothes, spring clothes. So your clothing budget is going to be important. Good shoes cost about $150 to $200. A winter jacket could cost about $200 as well. And all these things add up. And when you put all these expenses together, there's one thing that's clear. It's not necessarily how much money people need, it's when they need it. Is it available when you need it? And the timing issue catches a lot of people off guard, especially if they're planning for a job that they don't have yet and planning for IFCOM money that they don't have yet. And this altogether creates a lot of financial pressure. And sometimes these financial pressures push students to the edge. And, as immigration programs shift, the policies evolve, then they ask themselves the question like, well, what is the next step for me outside of these school doors anyway? Right? Here are the financial pressures. Here is the immigration pressure. And if you are not planning properly financially, you will get to if you're doing a 1-year program, you'll get to the end of that 1-year program. You will feel fresh out of options in terms of having to go back to school if you need a longer work permit, for example. And because of all of the financial decisions that were made leading up to this, it can be difficult to make a decision to take a second program, for example. And this is why you definitely want to come in, have that bare minimum amount of money that they're saying to come with. They're not making this amount up to sound exorbitant. You actually could spend just $20,000 on rent for a whole year, depending on where you're living, right? And so you definitely want to take these costs seriously and plan ahead. Now may get to the end of their first program and think, I don't even know if I'm in the right program. So I've just spent all this money. I feel this financially strained. Am I in the right program? And now they don't necessarily have the opportunity to pivot because they're fresh out of money. After a few months in Canada, students usually catch on and see the system a lot more clearly. And without proper planning, after those few months, it may be a little bit late to catch on. And if the program that you're in is not going to get you to your end result and your goal of being here in Canada or integrating into a sustainable occupation coming out of school, then what? Now, in my last video, I spoke about the top few programs in Canada that lead to in-demand occupations and therefore immigration opportunities in Canada. Of course, no guarantees, but this is where Passage also streamlines the loans that they provide, and they're providing them to programs in line with in-demand occupations. Passage also helps with helping to integrate into the job market after school to help make your transition successful, because your success is their success, right? You have a loan to pay. Okay, so we've done some math, right? So we're talking about, let's say, $18,000 in tuition. Let's call it $1,000, $1,000, $1,200 in rent. Let's go $120 in utilities, right? So this is the upper end. Let's go about $450 in groceries, $100 for your transit, or maybe $260 for your transit, depending on where you are, what city you're in. When you tallied all these up and you realize that you probably need some financial assistance, I want you to click that link in the description or pinned in the first comment below to check to see if you are eligible for a loan. And not only will it tell you if you're eligible, but it will also suggest some programs that are covered by the loans based on the answers that you put in. So go ahead, click that link, check your eligibility, and think through what the true costs of studying in Canada are going to be. And a lot of the stress that international students honestly experience is not necessarily from just the financial pressure, but it's a lack of planning. If you're overwhelmed or unsure, it doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong necessarily, but maybe it's time to see things differently. Or as you plan and it feels a little bit overwhelming, this is where our sponsor Passage comes in to try and help to lessen the financial burden. You don't have to come up with the entire tuition all at once. You could be coming up with 25 to 30% of the tuition up front, and then the rest of it is broken down into manageable chunks. That way, the stress of coming up with the next semester's tuition or even your next month's rent is not a burden on you as you try to navigate school in Canada. You still have to pass and do good. And of course, your immigration journey. Do conservative things like bring lunches to school, find out if there are any discounts or bus passes that are available for students, get financial support if you need it. Don't try to chance it, because you can pay it off over time versus taking the risk of trying to work and pay the next semester if you get that job. Use the eligibility checker that is linked in the description below and then pinned in the first comment to check to see if you're eligible for a loan and what program that they suggest you study. You don't have to do the one that is suggested. It's just a simple suggestion. Take some time to look at the numbers, the real numbers, your program, ensuring that it is in alignment with your goals here in Canada. You're going to get a work permit, whatever it is that your goals are. Make sure that the program supports your goals. All of the loan supported programs by Passage are post-graduation work permit eligible. And plan for life after arrival beyond tuition. If this video has helped you to understand the cost of living and studying in Canada, I want you to share it with one other person who you think that it may be helpful for. Share it with one other person. A little clarity early can save somebody a lot of stress and money later on down the line. If you want more practical tips like this and helpful videos, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if this video was helpful, when you share it, I also want you to hit that like button. Go ahead and check your eligibility and prepare for your studies here in Canada. Whether this is your first program or you are choosing to study a second program because you're having to pivot or take a new program, which is not a bad idea here in Canada.